bit of bad news for the Trump administration, as a federal judge has ordered the Office of Personnel and Management to rescind a memo that led to the firing of thousands of federal workers. Judge William Alsup of the Northern District of California also said the layoffs should be stopped.
Alsup called the memo illegal. He wrote, "The Office of Personnel Management does not have any authority whatsoever under any statute in the history of the universe to hire and fire employees within another agency. It can hire its own employees, yes, can fire them, but it cannot order or direct some other agency to do so."
It appears the agencies themselves can continue with the firings. However, since the judge did not mention that, OPM's initial directive told agency leaders to fire employees who were in their probationary period, which was expected to impact up to 200,000 workers. They then tweaked the directive to specify that they should consider firing those who were in a probationary period and had poor performance. The Interior Department has let go of around 2,300 employees, while the Department of Homeland Security and EPA have let go around 400. Kelsey Helland, an assistant U.S. attorney, said that the plaintiffs were confusing an OPM request with an order, and that this makes a world of difference. Helland said that agencies could ultimately make their own decisions on whom to fire. CEO of venture firm New Founding, Nate Fisher, wrote on X, "This is idiotic. If the judge acknowledges the agency heads could fire the employees, then the only conceivable dispute is between OPM and the agency heads. If the agency heads are not suing to block the memo, no one else should even have standing."
Obama White House alum Waldo Jackwith wrote on Blue Sky, "It is bizarre that we went through weeks of OPM ordering people's firings and those firings actually happening, when OPM has absolutely no such authority."
So I'm fine with if they want the situation to be that OPM can make recommendations and then the agency head ultimately has the authority on deciding who to fire. That's a fine process to me. I don't think that this is going to be a huge blow to the Trump administration because he did leave that opening for the agency heads to make those decisions. And we've seen some members of the Trump cabinet sort of pushing back a bit on the DOJ efforts to cut federal employees anyway, where you have Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, you have the Pentagon with Pete Hegseth saying that their employees don't have to respond to this email that Elon Musk sent out to employees through OPM, asking them to reply and list the 5 things that they had done. And I think it's understandable for the secretaries to want to have the final say-so on who gets hired and fired.
I think also when you look at the timing of a lot of this, it all began before some of the secretaries were in place and some of the directors were in place. So, we'll see what happens. But yes, you're right. The government has basically done this hiring and firing from OPM, and it should always, and from the beginning, should have been the responsibility of the secretaries to determine what those employees were going to do.
I'm also curious if the Trump administration will appeal or challenge this ruling, and we could see this go as high as the Supreme Court. I think that's probably the case with a lot of the executive actions that Trump has taken in the first month. Without some of these being backed up by congressional legislation, you're going to see a lot of stoppages in the courts. You're going to see a lot of injunctions, temporary pauses on some of the issues. They did get a win when it was ruled that they were allowed to continue this pause on federal aid. But needless to say, there's going to have to be, I think, some legislation to back up some of the action that he's taken.
Well, one of the things, as you said, which the Supreme Court, that's actually what I keep looking at. I keep hearing a lot of people say, even Senator Booker posted something about the courts or that they're winning in the courts. You're not winning into the courts until this reaches the Supreme Court, until the Supreme Court gets to determine whether or not it's going to decide on this or whether or not it's going to push it back down to the federal court. In terms of what we're seeing with the hiring and firing, I'm going to continue to say, to me, I think this is an egregious harm to American society. This is, in terms of understanding that, yes, there is some fat and there's some things that people want to cut off and there's some things that the president wants to do. I will also say, I've actually been pretty impressed with what the administration has been able to accomplish within the last few weeks. It has actually gone in and done what a lot of people from the other side have wanted to see their administration, their president do when the Democrats have been in office. And from that, it is, listen, we gave you the power to do things. And the president is demonstrating and showing that he does have power to do certain things. And he's gone about it with the executive order process, which other presidents have used, but usually later on in their administrations. He's come right out of the bat, and this is what I keep saying, that this is like a fifth year for the president, a second term for the president, he's gone right ahead and said, this is what we're going to do, and let the courts determine whether or not they can or cannot, we can or cannot do it.
Yeah, it's pretty clear to me that they were incredibly prepared for this second term. They knew exactly what they wanted to do on day one and started signing these executive orders, something like almost 200 on the first day alone that he signed at that Capitol.
His hand hurts.
I know. They need to get him an automatic pen or something. I don't even know if that's legal. He probably has to personally sign all of them. But yeah, they were incredibly prepared. And to your point about the Democratic administrations, I mean, people have been reposting videos of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama saying that they wanted to cut government waste, that they wanted to fire some federal employees, and never really did it in any meaningful capacity. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that when you are going to go in and do this massive overhaul of the government, there are going to be mistakes that are made. Elon Musk has said that himself. Look, we're not always going to get it right, but we will try to rectify it immediately when we get it wrong. Whether or not people trust Elon Musk to rectify the wrongs is another question. But I do think that, you know, overall, there are going to be situations where people are saying, okay, maybe that one was a little bit too far. But I think the underlying intention of trying to make the government more efficient, a lean, mean fighting machine, is something that the American people have been clamoring for quite some time.
And I think that part of the discussion, too, that we have not had is the fact that President Trump is changing the culture. And what he's also done is that there are a lot of people who voted for him who are saying, like, he's going in and he's doing exactly what we wanted him to do. But what they're also starting to feel is that what he's doing and what he promised he was going to do is also impacting them in a way that they didn't expect that it was going to. So when you start looking at the whole lay of the land, when you look at what the courts are going to do, I think a lot of what the courts are in place to do right now is what Congress is not doing, because similar to the press, where the press is basically reporting out what we think that the president wants them to say, Congress is also not yet holding the president's feet to the fire to say, wait, we want to do this. We can do this, but let's do this in a way that doesn't impact and hurt too many Americans in the process. You know, in terms of when you look at a bloated bureaucracy, President Clinton did get rid of, I think it was close to 200,000 employees. But what they did was they offered those employees early outs, and they offered in terms of packages, which is what this administration did. They gave them a hard deadline without them being able to see how this was going to impact them. And we've got a government shutdown that still potentially could come about because the House and the Senate have not conferred yet, and they don't have a budget yet that the president can sign. So there are a whole lot of other pieces that I think that go along with this in terms of the pie. But yes, the courts are working and doing their system, and what some people are afraid of, that the democracy is burning in a sense, but I think the democracy is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, coming up, President Trump hot mic moment. You don't want to miss it. Don't go anywhere. Stick around on Rising.